Hi everyone, it's Bella. Today I wanted to talk about American Horror Stories. So, first, I'll give a general summary and some general thoughts without getting into spoilers, and then I thought it would be fun to do a ranking of all the episodes this season, and in the ranking section, there will be spoilers. So, this is a spin-off of the show American Horror Story. I just call it AHS. You might hear me refer to it as that, but it's an anthology series. So every season is about a new story, new characters, and American Horror Stories is an anthology series where every episode is a new story. And based off of the title, you can tell that it's the horror genre. It's scary, dark, unsettling. So, as for my overall thoughts, I'm just such a huge fan of AHS and Ryan Murphy in general. So, I just love getting any content from him that I can. It's definitely getting a little overwhelming though at this point with this show just finishing up, and then we have the next season of American Horror Story is coming out, and American Crime Story is coming out soon, so it's definitely a lot right now. But so back to American Horror Stories, I don't know what I expected. I don't know if I was expecting it to be new stories or follow-ups and prequels for the other seasons. And I don't know which I would have preferred, but one thing that I don't like about what this show did is I don't like that it didn't commit to either one of those ideas. 3 of the episodes are continuations of storylines related to the original show, and then 4 of the episodes are completely unrelated. So it's a little all over the place. It's like half and half. And I love the AHS universe, but lately the seasons have not been doing it for me. They've all been really messy and illogical, but I kind of love it anyway, even though it is messy and doesn't make sense. But because of that, I didn't really have high hopes for this show. But I think there's definitely a rift between the 3 episodes that are centered around this one topic and 4 episodes that had their own storylines. I like the concept of each episode being about a new horror theme. I like short stories because I feel like they keep your attention a lot easier. You get to hear about all these different concepts and worlds and characters, and if you don't like it, it's all going to reset in an hour anyways. So in theory I like the short stories nature of it, but in terms of what the show actually delivered, I'm kind of half and half. There were some really bad episodes and some really good episodes, and there were some that were kind of in the middle for me. I liked the addition of some of the new people in the cast. Some people were really very welcome additions, and I'll get into the specifics of the cast and the ranking section. But I did expect to see more AHS regulars here, and I think there were only 5 people that were in American Horror Stories who were characters in the normal seasons. And as for scare factor, that's kind of a big thing that I look for and interested in American Horror Story, or just kind of Ryan Murphy projects in general. But Ryan Murphy can show some pretty messed up stuff in his shows, but I don't think anything really got to me for American Horror Stories. One episode did in particular, but we will talk about that more when we get to the rankings. So now we're going to get into the ranking, get into the spoiler section. So I'll start with the worst episode and then I'll go to the best one. So there were 7 episodes this season. So starting out at number 7, in last place is episode 7, Game Over. This is the third episode related to Murder House, and this is the one where it was like a video game. And I don't even want to get into what happens because it's hard to tell whether what happens is even real or not. But basically, it's about this woman who's trying to impress her son by making a video game about his favorite show, which is American Horror Story. He's not really impressed, so she takes it a step further and buys the murder house, and then she gets murdered there, and the son burns the house down to release the spirits. And it also features Scarlet and Ruby that were in episodes 1 and 2. And this episode was, my God, it was just terrible. I think a big problem with this show is, or at least this season, is just the focus on Murder House. I think it went way too far. One episode was kind of nice. It was kind of nice to revisit the house. 2 was pushing it a little bit, especially because there wasn't really, there wasn't enough content to make it 2 episodes. And then 3 is just taking it way too far. Like, I don't need to see 3 episodes of Murder House. And I think what I was hoping, or what I ended up liking the most about this show, was that I like the short stories concept, that each episode is about something different. So the fact that 3 episodes were about Murder House, I don't like that. I think other than just the whole Murder House premise, my biggest episode was with this episode was that it just didn't make sense at all. Like, what was the video game and what was reality? And I'll try to get into some of the points, but it's definitely going to be a little confusing. But so one question I have is, in the end, do you think that this all happened or not? So they, in the video game, they destroy Murder House, they burn it down, and then you find out that it was all just a video game. But then at the end, the son asks something like, do you think the spirits were dispersed out into the world? And then the episode ends with the ball rolling. So that must mean that Bo is now at their house, right? So that kind of implies that the events did happen, which doesn't really make sense. But yeah, so I don't even know where to start with this episode and how trying to point out all the things that didn't make sense to me. But so here's one point. So the mom watches AHS. This whole episode is very meta, which is why it's confusing and why I didn't like it. But so the mom watches AHS, the show. She buys the Murder House. And then when she's buying it, the realtor is telling her that, oh, the last owner was murdered here. They're saying something like that. So it's like she's in the universe buying the Murder House. But how would she be in the universe and still have watched the show? It's too meta and it just makes no sense. Or in the end, when we find out it was a video game the whole time, it says, congratulations, you won the game. You escaped Murder House. How did they escape Murder House when they literally end up with Scarlet buying a house that's on Murder House with one of the spirits of Murder House still there? Like, that doesn't really make sense to me either. Or how on Halloween, Scarlet is saying goodbye to Ruby out in the front yard, and then Ruby teleports inside the house because Halloween's over and she can't be outside the house anymore. But then later that episode, Ruby is able to fight with the son outside in the yard. Like, they can't even be consistent within the same episode. It's so frustrating. Or another thing is how in episode 2, Scarlet left the house because she didn't want to be trapped in the house. She didn't want to be killed and then be a spirit in the house for forever. So the whole point is that on Halloween, the spirits can leave the house and then she'll be able to see Ruby during Halloween when she's able to leave the house. So in this episode, in episode 7, Scarlet comes to visit and then Ruby is like, oh, come inside. And then Scarlet goes inside and they take a bath together. Like, literally, what the hell? How does that make sense? The whole point was that she didn't want to take the risk of going inside the house because she could get killed there and be trapped for eternity. So why is she going in the house? Why is Ruby not meeting her outside? And she waited for Halloween just to go inside the house anyway. Like, why would she wait for Halloween to do that? She could literally do that any other day of the year. And then also, Scarlet is just whining the whole time that the only thing I care about is you. This is the one good thing I get to do in a year. I literally have nothing else going for me in life, and I never will. Okay, so if Ruby is all she has to live for, why did she fight so hard to leave Murder House then? Why didn't she stay there so that she can live forever with Ruby and see her 365 days a year? It makes absolutely no sense. And just in general, their relationship makes no sense. It came completely out of nowhere. It was the biggest insta-lovey thing I have ever seen. It was absolutely atrocious. I don't care about their relationship in any capacity. Scarlet she was saying, I don't care about my dads. I only care about you. Like this girl that she's known for like 3 days. It was just so frustrating. It just gets old. Once you have this many episodes about Murder House, you don't even care anymore. Like, obviously they're all gonna die. They're all gonna live forever in the house. There's like no stakes for you to care about the characters or what happens to them. One thing I did like about it was I liked how when the house was burning, they were playing the classic Murder House theme with the whistling. But this time it had this happy orchestration behind it because the Murder House saga is finally coming to an end and all these spirits can be at peace. One thing I was really hoping to see more cameos from original Murder House people, and especially Violet and Tate I wanted to see, but I'm glad that we at least got to see Dylan McDermott, and I was just really glad to see him. And then we also got to see Jamie Brewer, who played Addie in the first season. And another thing I wanted to bring up is, so I've been seeing people criticize Ryan Murphy for how he always gives opportunities for nepotism babies. And I didn't mind when it was Emma Roberts. I didn't mind when it was Billie Lourd. But this season brought it to whole new heights. Like Paris Jackson I could stand. I was interested to see what she could do. But then Kaya Gerber and Noah Cyrus were just too much. Like, I need him to stop now, please. And there also was just nothing scary about this episode for me. So overall, it just pissed me off because of the logic and how nothing made sense. The story wasn't interested. I was tired of Murder House. I never cared about Scarlet and Ruby as a couple. So, yeah. Moving on to number 6 in the ranking is episode 2, which is Rubber Woman Part 2. So this is like the second Murder House episode. This is where Ruby and Scarlet become a couple out of nowhere. Like, it was literally out of nowhere. Kaya wasn't even in the first episode. And I don't know, I can't really think of anything that happens in this episode. I think my biggest problem with this and with episode 1 is that there was just no reason why it needed to be 2 parts. Nothing even happens in this episode. The dads find out they were murdered, but they could have fit that into the first episode. And I just hate Ruby and Scarlett's relationship, so I could have done without that too. I liked the addition of Aaron Tveit. I hope that he's in other seasons or other Ryan Murphy projects. And again, in this episode, I didn't think anything was scary here. And I feel like this episode was also just confusing. Like, there's always these unanswered questions. Like, I don't know what was going on with the Rubber Man guy. Like, it seemed like Scarlett was getting possessed or something, but I don't understand. But yeah, my biggest issue was just how annoying Ruby and Scarlett were, saying they're the loves of their lives, even though they've known each other for a few days. It was just really annoying and frustrating. So, coming in at number 5 in the ranking is episode 1, Rubber Woman Part 1. So, this is the first episode of the Murder House saga. And I guess this one's just about the family of Scarlett, the teenage girl, and her 2 gay dads that move into the murder house to renovate it. And this was the best of the Murder House episodes because it was when I still had hope for the show. I was excited to see it again. It was before it became overkill or whatever. And I liked where it ended. I thought, I didn't know that it was 2 parts or, even 3 parts. I thought it was 1 part, and I thought that was all that it needed. I liked that there were some Easter eggs to the original season, some of the songs and some of the characters. I liked the story with Scarlett and her dads and their relationship, and Scarlett veering off into this weird, deviant path. And I really liked the bits with the Mean Girls. I think that was actually one of the scariest bits of the season in general, was when you realize that they're actually pranking her. And I don't really have much else to say, though. I said most of everything during the other 2 Murder House episodes. But so coming in at number 4 in the ranking is episode 3, Drive-In. And this episode is about this banned film that was only shown once, and the people who watched it became these murderous zombies, and it's almost like it becomes an urban legend, and the film is being shown once again at a drive-in. And I liked the addition of Madison Bailey here. I liked seeing her in this episode. I also liked seeing some actors from the main AHS series, John Carroll Lynch and Naomi Grossman, who played Pepper. And this is where the episodes started getting good for me. The Murder House episodes were just bad. This is where the episodes started getting average or good. This one was a little more average for me. I didn't have too much of a connection with it, but I didn't mind it. I thought it had an interesting concept. I liked the story about this film that was scientifically crafted to perfectly cause this reaction in people, and the 2 main characters going to the movie and escaping and then going after the creator of the film. Again, this one wasn't really scary for me either. It was just zombies. That doesn't really get me very much. And number 3 in the ranking is episode 4, called The Naughty List. And this one is about a group of influencers who live in a content house called the Bro House. I liked the addition of Charles Melton here. I like him in Riverdale, and he fit in really well in this role. I also just like Danny Trejo. That was kind of a big person to have in a episode in the cast. But my favorite part of this episode was Dylan Burnside, and especially Kevin McHale. I love seeing people from other Ryan Murphy projects, seeing them cross over, and I love that he's created this universe of familiar actors. Dylan Burnside's from Pose and Kevin McHale's from Glee. And I've just been waiting for Ryan Murphy to include more people from Glee. And Pose too, why not? So I just thought this episode was hilarious. I love how over the top these influencers were. They were caricatures, but also like not. Like that is how the Jake and Logan Pauls and Austin McBroom characters act. And I just love that this episode was pretty much directly calling them out.
Welcome to the Bro House, a nonstop party where the only rule is Bro Rule.
And I've seen a lot of people don't like this episode for some reason, and I don't get why. Maybe it was because this one was more silly, and I agree that it wasn't very scary, but I just thought these characters were so entertaining with how dumb they are. And I just like the social commentary about this influencer culture. I suppose if you're not into the YouTube / TikToker scene, you probably wouldn't get it. So maybe people just didn't really get the connection. I don't know. I really liked it. And coming in at number 2 is episode 5 called Ball. I'm not sure exactly how you would pronounce that. But in this episode, it's about a couple that they're desperate to get pregnant and they've been doing fertility treatments, but it hasn't worked. And then a woman at the fertility clinic gives the main character a fertility doll that's supposed to help her get pregnant. And she uses it, she gets pregnant, and then forgets about this totem. And she finds it a few years later, and she starts seeing demons in the house and thinking someone is trying to steal her baby. And this was one of the rare episodes where we got to see an AHS regular. So I liked seeing Billie Lourd here. And I like the twist in the end that they were all gaslighting her to make her crazy and get her money. But also, I like that she got her revenge in the end. So I liked the twist, but it also didn't fully make sense to me. Like, it's just the longest con ever. Like, they were together for at least 2 years doing the fertility treatments before the whole gaslighting thing even started. And then a year and a half, they had the pregnancy and they waited like 6 months for them to start doing the gaslighting. So it was just implausible that the whole thing was a long con. But even though it didn't really make sense, it was still entertaining, I guess. I thought it was interesting. But I just liked the story in this one. I love anything that has a bit of mystery to it. So I liked uncovering what was going on, if she was going crazy, if there was some kind of demonic spirit that she resurrected. This episode didn't really scare me, but it was more along the lines of classic AHS darkness that I like. And coming in at number 1 is episode 6, Feral. And this episode was about a couple and their young son. They go camping and the son wanders off and he's been missing for 10 or so years when we jump to the couple again. And they've since divorced. A trail guide says he saw the boy in the woods and convinces the couple to come with him to search for the boy. And this one just had a great cast. Again, I love that Aaron Tveit was in this one. I'm hoping that he'll become a Ryan Murphy regular. And this one also had Cody Fern. He's definitely one of my favorites of the new cast people. And his character in this episode was just so well done. And it felt like there was just a real quality upgrade with this one. It felt completely different from the other episodes. It felt like it was taken a lot more seriously, a lot more thought and effort went into this one. The storyline was really thought out. And this was my favorite episode by far. This was the only one that I really, really loved. And I think the story was really strong. Again, I like a little bit of mystery, trying to find out what happens with the boy. And I liked the concept of the national parks being this conspiracy theory for these wildlings that are hiding out. And I just loved how over the top Cody Fern's Aussie park ranger character was. And there's a few twists along the way, like the guide being a con artist, which I saw coming, but that's okay. And I also pretty much saw it coming that the boy would be this like a wolf boy and be the leader of the pack. And I kind of saw I saw it coming that he wouldn't care about the parents, but even though I saw all of that coming, I still loved it so much. I thought it was so creepy how the parents were fawning over him. They were so glad to see him, and it's unclear whether he recognizes them or not, but either way, he kills them. And it was so creepy. I loved it. And it was just such a dark way to end the episode. But yeah, so overall, I'm glad the show exists. I'm glad there's more additions to the AHS universe, but I didn't particularly love it. I like the attempt. I hope they take it in some different directions next season, if there is one. And it's a bit hard to rate it too, because there were some really good episodes, but there were some really bad episodes, and there were also some that I was just a little more apathetic for. So overall, I would probably give this a 6 out of 10. And I don't know if I would really recommend this to anyone who's not already a fan. I don't think this would convert you to AHS. If anything, you should just start with the original show. I think that's probably obvious though. But yeah, that's it for my thoughts on the show. Let me know your thoughts on the show. Did you like it? Let me know your ranking of the episodes. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!